Awesome to have you here. I think I'm a little hot on my mic. Let me cover that up. Okay. If you are feeling like, oh, sugar, now we're off of quote unquote lockdown. We're in stage 3 here in Ontario, following in the rest of, well, not the rest of the world, but many other locations. Of course, I look down to the States and see my friends down there all at the NSA Influence Conference. And gosh, I wish I could have been there. But as we lighten up the rules here, you may be feeling a little like, wait a second. I kind of liked my couch. I kind of liked being on my own and socially distanced from people and not having to go to parties or networking events or business meetings or get on an airplane. Or I really love spending time with my family. It was a great excuse to let go of a few things in my life that I wasn't really interested in, but I was doing because I felt like I needed to be doing. And so that's what this is all about. This is a conversation. I've come up with some ideas, I think, to help with the transition. And, there are a lot of people who had social anxiety long before, COVID. And even let's not talk about just social anxiety. Let's think about something like someone who was an introvert who really hated going to networking events, but figured out how to get into the routine of doing that and interacting with people. And they had like all their systems in place, and now their systems are gone. And so I think there's actually going to be more struggle getting into a routine that's a high intensity outside of the home than it was going into the home, if that makes sense. I think this is going to be harder. So as I begin, I'd love to hear from you on the chat side and tell me, like, at any point during this call, like, what are you feeling? Are you feeling any anxiety about reintegrating into life post lockdown, post pandemic? I mean, I don't think we're there yet. We can't quite call it post pandemic, can we? But we're definitely on the right track. Okay. So here are my thoughts. And, I jot these things down, and this is just a riff, and I kind of jump all over the place and eventually come back to the place I need to be. But I hope I've got some semblance to this. I just don't have it in the right order that I want to have it in. But let's talk about first why there may be some anxiety. And I think part of the issue is the worry is the level of uncertainty. So uncertainty around, are we going into a fourth wave at some point? I hope not. Are the variants going to be okay with the vaccine? Like, there are a lot of different things that could cause an extra layer. And I think, as you know, I'm so obsessed with awareness, situational awareness, and self-awareness. And then when we dig into those, we can find the best solutions. And from a self-awareness perspective, I'm going to ask you to consider, how comfortable are you with uncertainty versus certainty? And, this is something straight out of Tony Robbins' playbook. If you've ever watched him on the 6 human needs. And the first 2 is we need to have certainty. Right? We need to have security and kind of have a sense of like, this is where our life is at. And that's great. And then we also need to have uncertainty, because if we didn't have any uncertainty, we would be completely bored. We wouldn't be stretching our goals. We wouldn't be going towards something. And so he says your ability to be successful is in direct relation to your ability to walk the fine line of certainty versus uncertainty. And people who are entrepreneurs at heart, people who are like me, who can be like, whatever is going to happen, I'm just so now, not always, but in the moment, that I'm trusting that whatever the future has in store is going to be kind of cool. And I will just trust myself to deal with it in the future, whatever that happens to be. So people like me who love uncertainty and who have just gotten a real comfort level with it are probably not having this issue with relation to coming back out of hiding in our homes as much, because we can just kind of roll with the punches. Not everyone, though, I understand, is like that. And by the way, there are a lot of other things that kind of have me thinking about this from a personal perspective. So by all means, I'm nowhere near just like going back out and thinking life is normal. All right. Okay. So that's the first piece. So find, and when uncertainty, when we think about that, if you can find routines or pieces of the puzzle of your day to day that are very certain, and it's not that you can't be like, you have to be so rigid about them. If you can find little things that you do that give you that comfort, if you know that you need the certainty, then you can kind of like comfort in those and then watch the uncertainty and try to be better with it. Okay. I don't know if that makes sense, but we can do another video on getting really comfortable with not knowing what the future holds, because, it's really kind of funny because nobody has a crystal ball. And so a lot of times people say, oh yeah, like I want to know what the future, well, you never knew anyway. It's just that COVID like put this huge spotlight on the fact that none of us know because we can't guess the future. Okay. So let me just look at my notes here. What I think is so great about this is your chance. It's a chance for every one of us to redesign our life. Think about how cool that is. Because if we would have just had a 2-week shutdown, it was a little blip, nobody would even be talking about it now, right? It'd be like the big blackout of 2013 when the lights went out in the Eastern Seaboard for 2 days. It was kind of a fun, not a fun thing, sorry. It was a memorable experience. And it didn't change anybody's life, right? It might have changed yours, but it didn't change anybody's life. And so instead, what we want to do in this search situation is, where was I? Is design. We've had enough of a reset in our lives that we can redesign our new life. And so what does that look like? I'm going to ask you to go back to 2019 and look at your schedule. If you have it on a piece of paper, if you have it on, it could be anything, right? I want you to go back and look at 2019 and look and say, was I happy? What parts of that did I love? What parts of that did I hate? What parts of that did you do begrudgingly because you thought you had to do it? What parts were like the ones you did that like you loved spending time with these people and you didn't love spending time with those? Because if we can look back and say, okay, what did my life become that I wasn't totally thrilled with? And now look and say, okay, I'm going to redesign a new life. That's pretty cool. That's a really great opportunity. So be proactive. Make a plan of how you want your life to look. Are you interested in getting back on the road 24/7? Maybe not. Are you going to keep your service offerings to have virtual and in person as it calls for? Maybe you just only want to do virtual. Definitely possible, right? So get really clear. The next thing is you want to start with safe people. So as you go back out in the world, try to figure out like, who are the people I'm most comfortable with, right? And go and play with them out in the world. Like I sound like we've not been out at all. Some of us have, but I'll tell you, I went out for dinner the other night with some friends and there were a few like manner things that I forgot. I'm not even going to tell you, but I just felt like it didn't feel comfortable. This is the whole point of like, it was a lot easier to go inward than I think it is to come outward with those of us who love being alone. Like I'm pretty comfy talking to a camera. Like, sure, I'd love to have more of a social life, but like I'm comfy at home. I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty good. So I want to go spend time with friends, be with the people who you absolutely love, which is awesome. I think the whole concept around doing the small stuff and, that's a lot of my message. I mean, I have a deeper way of illustrating that and really making it make sense. But I think now is going to be the time where you could design, if there were things that irritated you before, you could actually be like, you know what? I'm not interested in that irritating me anymore. And do things like that, like from a design perspective. It's really cool. Also, when we're interacting with others, not making assumptions about where they're at. Like I met somebody on the sidewalk the other day and really friendly, came up, gave me a great big handshake. And I was like, oh, wait, yeah, that felt really familiar and yet so foreign, right? To have a handshake with somebody who I didn't know. And I was like, okay, well, am I comfortable with handshakes? Sure, I am. And we can't make assumptions that other people are, right? So definitely something about your boundaries, being a part of that, and then having the conversations with your team or conversations with your the people who are in your life who you're going to go back to. I think a lot of the talk right now is around going into the office for the first time, when it was so easy to just wake up and you're going to have to create new routines and figure out new systems to actually really get into a new groove. But I think, as we go through this, focusing on the good can be really powerful. You know how I am about silver lining thinking and always being like, okay, what are the positives that come out of it? Even if you're feeling some social anxiety, what can you focus on that makes you feel really good in the moment to help mitigate some of that is really important. And I noticed this, and this is part of a conversation. So I'll share it because I think it's important for for us to have this conversation. The idea around with regards to assumptions is it's really easy if you've been away from people or don't feel like you're part of the in crowd to be left out. What I'm talking about? So if you're feeling left out, and I know office dynamics, this happens, right? We get cliques. I remember when I used to teach networking and I would go in and talk to associations. And there were always, not always, but the majority of the times, one of the issues that I needed to address was the issue of cliques. How there was a certain group of people who were really close friends and they just kind of ignored everybody else. And I think that happens in offices. I think it happens often in many different dynamics of different teams. And I think with the assumption, we have to assume people have good intention when it comes to returning to the office space. Okay. And so if you're feeling left out, I wouldn't make the assumption, oh, they don't like me, or they that, oh, I'm not part of the cool kids crowd or whatever. I would actually make the effort to make other people feel comfortable. One of the strategies I used to share with people is that if you go to an event and you don't feel comfortable, adopt the perspective of being the host. Even if you're not the host, pretend you're the host in your own mind, because the host is always the person who, is sure everybody's happy, like talking to different people, get them a drink, engage, go up, be sure nobody's left out. Like that sort of attitude in the office can really help integrate people, because based on different statistics and stories I've read about integrating, there are many people who are having a lot of anxiety around this topic. And if you can be the person who makes somebody else feel comfortable, asking them how they are, having deeper conversations than that, you can really solidify and create these beautiful relationships within your work life, which is awesome. And relationships that maybe wouldn't be there if you were just virtual. So a lot of really great things that can come from getting to go back out into the world. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking about today, is that workplace anxiety. If you are feeling it, getting back into life post-lockdown, take baby steps, be strategic, design your life, because now is your best opportunity to do that. Set some boundaries and, get out there and just do a little practicing here and there, and, embrace the uncertainty. We don't know. I was talking to somebody else the other day, a doctor, who said, oh, well, as long as we don't go to a fourth wave. And like, that's actually on their mind. I'm like, oh, nobody said anything about a fourth wave. That's not part of the agenda, is it? No. So I think I'm hopeful that we're doing good. I'm hopeful that we're okay and we can just keep riding this. But continuing into our opening up, I'm definitely looking forward to getting back out to conferences. I'm hoping with the third step in Ontario that some clients are actually going to be having small retreats with their office teams and their management teams. And, that's my sweet spot. So if you are someone who is doing that, let me know. And we can talk about bringing me in and having my whole problem solving framework that I share, and it can help deal with the stress, the risk of burnout, and so many barriers to optimal performance and happiness that it can be applied to overcome. So that I would love to be back out in person with teams, definitely making that happen. So I hope you've got something really great out of this, and let me know in the comments how it's going. I've got a comment here. Chelsea, I just bought your book. I can't wait to read it. Well, that's awesome. That makes me so happy. Thank you. I hope people are loving it. The reviews are starting to come in. There's a lot on Instagram. And I just really hope it changes how people see, like, fundamentally how they show up for work, and eliminates that stress response, right? Because it's less about when you work and more about how you work. So thank you, Chelsea, and let me know how it goes. It's a quick read. So as soon as you get it should be good. Thank you. All right. Well, this has been the lift up for today. And if you are back out into the real world, good on you. And if you're having a little bit of anxiety, I hope that some of these thoughts that I've shared in today's riff have made you feel a little bit more hopeful and excited about getting back out there. So have the best day.